Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to a second video. I haven't been able to upload with the frequency that I would have liked. It's been a bit of a hectic week. But let's get into the topic of today's video, which is a phrase or a slogan that you've definitely heard at least once in your life, if not multiple times. And it's something that has been permeating Western thought, Western culture, Western ideology for about the last 10 or 20 years. And that is the idea that diversity is our strength. Now, every time I hear that, it always begs the question, what do you mean by diversity and what do you mean by strength? Because when I look at the contemporary and historical evidence behind that phrase, I begin to realize there's not actually much substance behind that. And I do have a feeling that every time that slogan is said, it's almost been propagandized now. It's almost keep parroting the same lie until people believe it's the truth. This video is only going to be about 10 minutes long, so you can say I've cherry-picked the data. If I had a bit longer and we're going to do an hour, then perhaps the presentation would be a bit different. If we look at a country like the United Kingdom, obviously it consists of England, Northern Ireland, Wales, and Scotland. And now these borders and these territories didn't come around between a peaceful agreement between settled cultures. This is a millennia-long battle of bloodshed. You had the English and the Irish resisting English rule. You had the War of the Roses. You had the Civil War. You had the Troubles. You had the Irish Civil War. And these conflicts mostly came about through a difference in political thought, ethnicity, sectarianism, and religious beliefs. It was even in my grandparents' generation that it was looked down upon or just simply not allowed for a Protestant to marry a Catholic. So obviously that difference in religious understanding has led to conflict and has led to a split within society to the point where you have full-grown men with AK-47s on the streets of Dublin shooting each other. You had bomb attacks which claimed the lives of the royal family. Um, so it only takes a rudimentary look at British history to see that the different groups that have existed on these isles has actually led to mass conflict. Um, of course, today we are a functioning democracy. Everyone gets along more or less, and it's all worked out. But that hasn't come with its historical, conflicts and battles and so forth. If we just go to a place like China, one of the largest countries in the world, we've got Taiwan, which is always under threat of reunification. We've got a place like Hong Kong. You've got Tibet, and you've got the Uyghurs in the north. Now, Tibet has always fought to be its own area. It has a difference in philosophy, it has a difference in belief, and they've fought frivolously to make sure that they have their own autonomous area. And you've got the Uyghurs in the north, who are a religious minority. They're of the Islamic faith, and they're under brutal suppression by the CCP, mostly ignored by the mainstream media, because CCP is the factory of the world, and it's probably not economically viable to go press too hard with the questioning and the understanding of what exactly is happening to the Uyghurs there. Um, the Chinese government has gone so as far to kidnap their women, marry their women off to Chinese men to dilute them demographically. They have re-education camps to try and eliminate that Islamic element to their society and to their demography. So I'm sure that these peoples, even just within, say, China, are not celebrating from the rooftops and claiming that this diversity that they've experienced in China has been a massive strength for them. It's actually been a source of conflict which exists all the way until today. The Middle East is a perfect example. You've got the Kurds, obviously you've got the Arabs, Jews and Christians, different sects within there. You've got the Sunnis, the Shias, the Twelvers, the Salafis, the Wahhabis. You look at a place like Lebanon, the government is split into four to represent each ethnic group or each group that lives there. Syria, internal turmoil. Even the most seasoned political analysis gets confused about exactly what's happening there because it's ethnic, it's sectarian, it's religious, it's political. Um, there's so many different groups vying for power all the time. And that is essentially a representation of a diversity of thought, a diversity of religion, a diversity of ethnicity, which has ultimately in that area led to bloody conflict all the way through history and still exists today. Um, the Kurds are always in a revolutionary spirit, trying to fight for their own recognized territory, trying to be autonomous, trying to have their own country. And again, that is an ethnic difference, that is a diversity that has led to conflict in that area. And I'm sure in the educational literature they're not teaching the children in their schools or telling each other and their family members, oh, this diversity, it's just been so great for us, hasn't it? It's just been this massive strength and everyone gets along and economically everyone's so prosperous and there's no war. Everyone's just settled and we just enjoy the diversity. It's comical to think that. Um, I can continue on. We can look at the balkanization of Yugoslavia breaking down, the North and South Sudan, the Hutus and the Tutsis in Rwanda, the partition of India. All of these examples is basically where there has been a diversity of peoples or of philosophy and religion, which in the end has led to a conflict and have led to a weakening. These conflicts hasn't strengthened anyone. It hasn't made the average person living in those countries richer. It hasn't made the average person in those countries more educated. It hasn't given them better public services. It's just ruined the surroundings around them. It's weakened them. So when you hear that phrase constantly used, and it's used in terms of Europe and how bringing a large amount of people into the country from cultures that are very different to yours, to then suddenly expect for people to believe that as long as we say diversity is a strength, it must be true, is ignorant of history at best, and at worst, it's just disingenuous to tell people that. That's not to say diversity or migrating large amounts of people from one area to another hasn't worked for some places. I'm not going to say a success. I don't think it's really something you measure in terms of has it been successful or not. It's just whether or not it's worked. So if you look at somewhere like Dubai, where it's only about 15% native Emirati and the rest is a migrant workforce, plus uh, business people from around the world that are going there to take advantage of, the low taxes. Um, we have to look at why does it work in Dubai? Strong legal system, respect of law and order, a respect for the native culture and the native religion, which is Islam, and terrific infrastructure. So the direct comparison to Dubai in East Asia would then be Singapore. Low taxes, fantastic infrastructure, really strict laws, and low taxes. The European version of that would be something like would probably be like Switzerland, except Switzerland integrated people from neighboring cultures, so people that have had a similar cultural evolution to Switzerland. So obviously you've got the native Swiss, French, Germans, and Italians. You've got German-speaking areas, French-speaking areas, and Italian-speaking areas. So they've absorbed people in from cultures that are similar to theirs. They have low taxes, guns are legal, infrastructure is good and modern, and they vet everybody that comes in. So if anyone has watching this has ever tried to apply to get into Switzerland to work or to live, I mean, unless you've got a really technical skill, a hard skill that their economy needs, then it's really difficult to get in. So when you compare the examples of where perhaps multiculturalism, diversity has been fairly successful, there's certain prerequisites that the United Kingdom doesn't have. So if we just start with law, the United Kingdom now incentivizes crime. Okay, you can steal up to £200, you can break into the country illegally, you can do X, Y, Z and basically get a slap on the wrist. The grooming gangs is another example. You can practically mass, what, children, underage girls, and have the whole of the state actively help you to cover it up. The infrastructure, when compared with most of Europe, is terrible. Our access to public services, our hospitals are really bad. And our taxes are really high. So you can have income tax up to 40 or 50%. So the right measurements or the right policies were not in place to soften the impact of having mass migration or having diversity or having multiculturalism, because I think they're all interlinked, right? First comes the immigration, then comes the diversity, and then comes the expression of cultures. So it's kind of conjoined. It's like a trifecta. So there's lessons to be learned from around the world of how if England actually, I think it's too late for England now. I think it's made its bed, and it's going to need some serious change and a massive overhaul of the political instruments and our migration policies to basically start to fix the root of the issue, amongst many other things, which would be an hour video. But I'm trying to put things, at least stay on topic here. Um, England hasn't taken the emulated working examples of multiculturalism from around the world and bring it to England. So instead of having a strong legal system like Dubai and Singapore, they softened their legal system. Instead of building fantastic infrastructure again, like Dubai, Singapore, and Switzerland, we haven't built anything. Our regulation kind of blocks us. Instead of lowering the taxes, letting people keep more of their money in their pocket, trying to keep people, because if people have more money, they're generally happier and feel like they have more freedoms. But instead, our taxes have gone up every year, highest taxes since 1970. So when they constantly tell us that diversity is our strength, I can't help but feel it's almost gaslighting, or it's said in a propagandized way to cover up the fact that they've actually massively failed in the multiculturalism experiment, which was actually noted by Keir Starmer in one of his speeches, that it was a failed experiment. And it's easy to see and make the comparison where multiculturalism, diversity as word, and compare that to England and see how England has actually created a recipe for disaster instead of a recipe for success. And then if anyone notices that, and if anyone says anything against it, well, you're the problem, not us. So it's like this playground, childish way of management and government, which has led to extreme dissatisfaction in the general British populace surrounding the ideas of migration and diversity. So England has a long road ahead of it if it wishes to make this project a success. I personally think the ship has sailed. It would only be containment and controlling the collateral damage at this point. But I hope that explains things a little bit better for you and kind of gives you my thoughts on that idea and that phrase. Thanks for listening. Catch you on the next one. Take care.